Well, it's November 16th when I'm filming this video right now, and I want to share with you guys the next few days in November, the strategy that I use this time of year as we get towards that November 19th through say the 24th. A lot of you guys have watched my prior videos about the daylight buck activity chart, and this time of year, November 15, 16, 17, we really kind of see a dip in the daylight buck activity. And I think a lot of that is the result of just the majority of the does have been bred, and we're just kind of coming off the peak of that breeding bell curve. And where I put my trail cameras is in those public land rut funnels. So back in the heavy cover, kind of those peripheral spots, so they're not right on the food. They're not right on the food plots, for example, or egg fields, things like that. They're back in heavy cover, back in more of the rut funnel type application. So that's why I see that drop in activity this time of year, kind of that real mid-November time. But what's interesting is as we get through that peak breeding, kind of that November 11th and 12th through say the 16th ish, this like today, tomorrow. But as we get through kind of that peak breeding and start to come down the back side of it into say November 17th or 18th, then suddenly I see that activity pick back up again. I see kind of a spike in activity again. That 19th through the 24th seems to be the biggest blip, and that's because those bucks are going out and desperately searching for that last doe to try to find a breed. As we come down to the toe of the slope, kind of the very bottom of the backside of the breeding bell curve, those bucks are leaving whatever doe they're with, and they're going out and frantically trying to find one last doe to breed, as there become fewer and fewer of them on the landscape that are in estrus. So thinking about your hunting spots, in the video I released last week, or where it was more that peak breeding focus, say November 10th through the 14th, I talk about being on the food plots or near them, or right in and around the doe zones. And the cool part about the next few days, the 19th through the 24th, is you can still hunt those areas if you're getting pictures, if you're seeing good activity, does, bucks, things like that. You can certainly hunt those areas, but those more remote rut funnels tend to get good again. Your periphery mock scrapes, periphery scrapes meaning they're not right in and around the does, but they're in more of that long range travel connection between doe zones. That's where I start to see those daylight bucks show up again and hit those mock scrapes. Is, as an example, a lot of scenarios that set up where I hunt is we'll have, say on the private land, I know of some crop fields or a private land food plot, or maybe it's a big alfalfa field. But then back on the public, there'll be a big clear cut. All the public lands around here, it's either county, state, or federal, and they've got some kind of timber management program. So a common clear cut that fills back in will be either just solid popple whips, if it's a big aspen clear cut they did, or a lot of times they'll plant young red pine or spruce. So you could have a 6, 7, 8 year old young pine plantation coming up. Those are great hubs of doe activity. So, and you'll know if it's a doe zone because you'll see all the droppings, the trails, the fresh tracks throughout the fall. You'll know if it's an active pine plantation or popple whip clear cut. So in an example like that, you could have a stand in between the clear cut regen on the public, and then over here you've got the private land food plot or alfalfa field or something, and maybe there's a big swamp in between the two. Well, you could find a swamp island or something like that those bucks are going to use to sort of hop, skip, and jump between those two doe concentration areas, one being the clear cut on the public, the other being the private land food source of some sort. You can get into a rut funnel in between those two things, and from November 19th through the 24th, those spots get really good again. If you have a mock scrape in there, those bucks are probably going to hit that mock scrape in daylight on their way through. You're back in heavy cover, so those most mature bucks feel comfortable moving through there in the daylight. I get a lot of really big bucks. The most mature bucks I get on camera throughout the year I'll get them showing up on that November. It'll just surprise you out of nowhere. The 19th, the November 20th, just boom, middle of the day, early afternoon, he'll just be ripping open your mock scrape, suddenly going from doe zone A to doe zone B or back and forth. And if you happen to be sitting there waiting in that rut funnel, that's your lucky day. So, as we get into the peak breeding, like what's in the rear view mirror now, I don't sit those real remote middle of nowhere rut funnels so much. I try to be on the does during the peak breeding. But when, like the next week coming up here, that's where I'm moving back out into those periphery areas, back in heavy cover, real remote types of areas where there aren't necessarily deer in them throughout the year, but those bucks are using them as that long range travel need to get from point A to point B, from doe zone A to doe zone B. And there's a lot of scenarios like that that you could find in a lot of public land situations, or even on private, the back in the heavy dense cover, those types of areas. Those spots start to get really good again, and so don't discount them. It's really like the pre-rut in the ramp up to the peak breeding. It's pretty much like that, just playing out in reverse now. So feel free to get back into those remote rut funnels, back on those kind of peripheral mock scrapes and rut funnel scrapes, things like that. You'll start to see some cameras light up with daytime photos of bucks hitting those things. The last couple days we'll jump right back to the video here in a second, but I just wanted to show you guys real quick how we've got all of our trees browse blockered up for the year now. They'll stay this way all through winter and the next spring, and then we'll take this off and reuse them in subsequent years. But if you're someone who's been looking for a way to stop deer browse on your young trees, these browse blockers flat out work, and it's a really low cost solution to protecting a whole bunch of trees. So if it's something that you think could help you out, just check them out at browseblocker.com. And you can learn a little bit more about them on the website. You can see how we've got even the lower branches down here protected by the netting. You can really protect this whole tree for a really low cost. When you go to check out, if it's something that you think might help you, just say that you saw this on YouTube, and we'll throw in 10 free clips and nets on top of whatever you order. I've got 8 cell cams out and plus another 4 or 5 traditional cams. So I got about a dozen to 14 cameras rolling right now, and they've been pretty quiet for me the last couple of days. We have had more low pressure, but I'm expecting, like on my rut funnel, cell cam, mock scrape type spots, I'm expecting to see a couple shooters move through them again here, again in that kind of 19th through 24th, roughly that 5-day period. So something to think about. And depending on where you're at in the country, those dates are going to be probably a little bit further behind mine. Just think about that. I'm up in northern Minnesota, so I'm really far north. So just keep that in mind depending on where you're at in the country watching this. But tonight I'm actually going in to try to get another doe. I got drawn for a surplus doe hunt, and so they let you get a few of them. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to try to get one more for the freezer here tonight. But November 16th, I know a lot of you guys are still out grinding and trying to fill that tag. So I really wish you luck. I hope you can fill that tag. I am wearing a little bit of orange here, even though it's an archery hunt only type deal. But I just don't trust people. The gun season's open in Minnesota right now, and there's plenty of yahoos that maybe don't know that you can't use rifles back in here. So I just want to make sure that I'm seen in case there is some person that doesn't know you can't use rifles. So you can maybe hear the cars in the background, I'm not sure. But anyways, I'm going to get back in here, settle in for a doe hunt this evening, see if I can get a little more venison for the freezer. But let me know what you guys think on kind of that rut breeding bell curve playing out in reverse. Is that what you guys see, those spike in daylight buck activities in your more remote rut funnels from the 19th through the 24th? I wish you guys well. Take care, and until the next video, I will see you guys then.